Separatist attack! After the destruction of the Republic outpost on the Rishi moon, General Grievous and Asajj Ventress plan an attack on the planet Kamino, home of the cloning factories. Meanwhile, aboard a Jedi cruiser, Jedi Knights Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi examine an intercepted message from General Grievous.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tigar. Welcome to the 104th ARC Trooper approved episode of Mando Vision. Nargai Tom, I am the head Buckethead in charge. Thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. Woo! I'm so glad you're here. It's Friday. We're going to get ready to kick off the weekend. And boy, oh boy, did we just watch an outstanding episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars. You knew it was coming. I mean, come on. When these were originally released back in 2010, they put it together for a solid power hour, and that's exactly what it was. Can't wait to talk to you about it. Let's get the particulars out of the way first, though. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is, of course, via social media, at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, share the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If possible or so inclined, remember 5-star reviews. They're so sweet, and they really, really help small shows like us stand out, not get lost in the shuffle, and, punch that separatist army-led algorithm right in the face. Right in its mush. That's where you want to punch it. All right. Like I said, we're here for a big one. I mean, it's a big one. It's Season 3, Episode 2, ARC Troopers. And I remember, I think it was at Celebration, or maybe it was at Comic-Con. I don't remember specifically what convention it was announced at. But leading up to Season 3 of the Clone Wars coming back, it was sometime in the summer, so it makes me think it was Comic-Con, but I could be totally mistaken. They talked about how there was going to be ARC Troopers emphasized in the new season. And many of us lost our marbles because we were so very, very excited by the potential for more ARC Troopers, more characters like Captain Rex, showing up and doing awesome things. And again, remember too, back in 2010, we were still in this period. It was pre-Disney, so the canon was still a little bit different. Clone Wars was sort of changing the game, but that's not the exact right terminology. I want they were. Clone Wars was the new canon, so ARC Troopers that we had seen previously had sort of been shuffled to the side. The version that we got from Gennady Tartakovsky's Clone Wars animation series, what we got from the Star Wars The Dark Horse comic book series, the Republic series. I think the ARC Trooper debuted in issue 50, and then of course the Republic Commando game. That version of the ARC Trooper had kind of been shunted to the side, but they were sort of re-emphasizing and altering the ARC Troopers a little bit in Star Wars The Clone Wars for the animated series and for the new canon moving forward. But the fan base was really excited to see the return of the ARC Troopers. They were a really exciting part of the Clone Wars culture that was developing at the time. And we talked a little bit last week on the episode about the old canon and particularly the Karen Traviss novels and how Cal Scarata, handpicked by Jango Fett to help recruit, or not to recruit, but to train the clone troopers and make sure that they were awesome. in Kalskara's role in developing ARC troopers in particular. And if you remember that book series, you remember the Null troopers, the quote unquote failed ARC troopers, but that were actually more awesome than anyone, or more than the Kaminoans, gave them credit for. So. A fun, rich history for anybody of the appropriate age bracket. But again, the version that began in Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the animated series, is still great. But it sort of speaks to like this sort of interesting spot that we find ourselves in with the fandom of where how do we value what's now considered legends, and for me, the value of it's still high because at the time like that was as real as it got for Star Wars canon, for continuity. So I still value those old ARC Trooper books and characters a lot because they were I think the original versions were even more enhanced too, like stronger, smarter, faster, more intelligent, quick-witted, quick intelligence, developing plans, adapting. They were like the next level of clone trooper. So I have a ton of respect and appreciation for that old canon, old lore. Obviously, if you listen to the show, you know that. This is not the first time I've said that. But always a good reminder in case there's a new member of the audience out there checking us out for the first time. And if you're out there for the first time, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We hope you enjoy the show today. And maybe you're just checking it out because you're like, oh, season 3 of the Clone Wars. That was like one of my favorites. That's when I got into the show. Let's see what this Joker has to say about it. Well, the joke's on you, buddy, because we're having a darn good time talking about the Clone Wars over here. So hopefully you enjoy it. Anyways, let's get into the episode proper. You know which one we're doing. It's Season 3, Episode 2, ARC Troopers. Original air date, September 17th, 2010. And that is, again, the same date as the Season 1 episode, Clone Cadets. Because they bunched it all together, maybe give us that power hour. The first time we get to meet Echo and Fives, and we see Heavy. Again, a lot of the troopers that we connected with in Season 1, back in the Rookies episode, come back and we see their sort of origin story. And this is the episode that takes place after Rookies, after the events on the Rishi Moon. And so it's kind of been like 2 years in the making at this point, right? Because it's Season 3 and Rookies is back in Season 1. So a lovely kind of continuation, catching up with characters that we get to know over the course of this series. So it's a lot of fun that way. Let's get to our plot. General Grievous and Asajj Ventress combine forces in an attack on Kamino. As Anakin and Obi-Wan rush to aid Tapaka City, the clones prepare to defend their home planet. And that is a really... I love that sort of thought process with the clones and how they're taking this attack personally. That's where they were born. Kamino is their home planet, and they will defend it with all their might, all their strength, because that's their home to them. And it's so funny to think. It's one of those things that like I don't think I had quite perceived Kamino the same way the clones did, but it makes total sense. And when you revisit that episode and you see sort of like the emotional attachment that the clones have to it, like I said, I mean, yes, it's a science lab, but it's their home. It's what they grew up with. It's what they know. And again, I think that's a really strong backbone for this episode. The sort of like the personal stakes for the clones as far as that goes. Plus, I mean, they're also defending, future brothers, unborn brothers. So there's a lot at stake here for the clones, and I love sort of like the understated emotion that D. Bradley Baker puts into a lot of the performances in this episode. And again, another fine episode of D. Bradley Baker, just crushing it to the nines in this one. This episode is directed by Kyle Dunleavy, written again by Cameron Litvak, who did last week's episode, Clone Cadets. Our cast, we already talked about it. D. Bradley Baker, he's so good in this. He is the Clone Troopers. He is the Aqua Droid. James Arnold Taylor is Obi-Wan Kenobi and the computer. Matt Lanter is Anakin Skywalker in TV94. Matthew Wood returns as General Grievous in the Battle Droids. Tisla Valenza, is Shakti, back for another episode. Bob Bergen is Lamasu. Tom Kane is our narrator and Admiral Yularen. Nika Futterman is Ventress. And Daniel Logan voicing the Clone Cadets. The first time Daniel Logan's stepping up to be not Boba Fett. So he's just playing the cadets as he did in Season 2's episode, except he's not in disguise this time. It's just he's doing the voice of the cadets. And I think he does a darn fine job. All right, so we're going to get into the episode. We're going to get into our Jedi Fortune Cookie. We're going to get all that. But we're doing it on the other side of the bump, and you know what that means. It's officially time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Kamino. They're going to attack our home planet.
The Separatists are taking quite the chance, even considering this.
With all due respect, General, if someone comes to our home, They better be carrying a big blaster. I concur with Captain Rex, sir. This is personal for us clones.
We'll make sure Kamino is secure. Tell your troopers in the 501st, they're going home.
Yes, sir.
Well, like I told you, this episode is so action-packed, it's basically nonstop. This is like a solid 22 minutes of just kick-butt action stuff. You're going to love it if you haven't watched it already. It's a very good ride. If I didn't state it earlier, I did want to mention once again ARC Troopers, Advanced Recon Commandos. That is what the ARC stands for in ARC Troopers, and they're pretty freaking awesome. The episode sort of builds in a way that I remember rewatching this episode reminded me of how I was sort of thrown off by the title of the episode initially, because I thought for sure that meant that the title of the episode meant, oh, we're gonna have a bunch of ARC troopers in this episode doing ARC troopery things. But that's sort of not what it is. It's sort of what we get at the end of the episode by many means. And that works out really, really well, I think, in the long run for the storytelling that they're doing and for what they set up in the previous episode, in the Clones Cadets episodes, where they're referring to ARC troopers, again, as that gold standard to strive for, to try and achieve. And I really enjoy that part of it. Our Jedi fortune cookie for this episode: fighting a war tests a soldier's skills. Defending his home tests a soldier's heart. And hopefully you didn't hear that ambulance behind me. My goodness. And so, again, we're connecting the dots here with Domino Squad. Remember, think back to the Rookies episode in Season 1. We're finally picking up a lot of the threads from that episode that feels like such a long time ago. And I guess by and large, it is. I mean, by the time Season 3 rolled around, I think I had sort of even forgotten about the Rookies episode, except for on my DVD rewatch that was going on back in the day. So we're reconnecting with Domino Squad, who we reacquainted with in last week's episode, but a lot's changed because, and one of the things we didn't talk about necessarily, we didn't talk about it at all on the Clone Cadets episode, is how that one of the levels, one of the layers of that episode is sort of like the way the Heavy steps up to take command of the team and embrace his identity, how he sort of becomes Heavy at the urging of 99. And again, we talked about that sort of, once you find your identity, how important that is to rally others around you, because when you have the confidence in yourself, it inspires confidence in others, and that's what Heavy's role is. And yeah, Heavy doesn't make it out of the Rookies episode, so you're sort of getting his origin and the overall origin for Domino Squad. This episode, when we catch back up with Echo and Fives, we acknowledge that sacrifice that Heavy made back in Season 1. They're wearing a decal on their shoulder pauldrons, a Z6 rotary cannon, tribute to Heavy. Again, just one of those small, subtle touches that they do on Star Wars: The Clone Wars, that they kind of like, ooh, that's a good little touch right there. Not as only is it a great callback, but it's a great way for these clones to show that brotherhood and the strength of that brotherhood. So one of those little moments that I really, really enjoyed. We talked about how the clones are taking this attack on Kamino personally. It's their home, and they're going to step up and defend it with everything they've got. This episode's also Grievous and Ventress teaming up, for the first time, and that's an exciting pairing as well. Grievous he's sort of one of these villains I facilitate on. I can go from, kind of digging his vibe a little bit to like sometimes I'm just so sick of him, and mostly because of the sort of cowardly way he makes his escapes every time. Like all these like near misses for the Jedi or for the clone troopers in eliminating General Grievous as a threat, and he just sort of slinks away back into the shadows from which he came. So that kind of grates on me. But again, you get a little bit of that too. I think that's the one thing I've learned to embrace more on this rewatch is General Grievous and sort of his actions and sort of his mentality when it comes to what I guess he would consider to be a strategic retreat instead of running away with his tail tucked between his legs. Excuse me. And then Ventress too. Ventress is sort of the same thing, though I love Ventress as a character by leaps and bounds, but she always just manages to get away at the last moment. And then we get two of those escapes in this episode because they are in this episode together. They escape. It's basically together. So spoilers on that one. We also get Obi-Wan and Anakin meeting up with Shakti when the clone forces arrive. I was a little surprised. Well, that's not quite the right word. I thought it was interesting that they only brought one cruiser to defend Tapaka City, and they sort of trusted the rest of the mission to the blockade. I thought that was an interesting and maybe a bit naive of the Jedi to be like, we just need to bring one squadron down here to reinforce Topeka City, but they're not going to get past the blockade. I mean, Shakti even makes a reference to that, or I believe it's Lama Su who makes reference to like, surely the separatist forces cannot break the Republic blockade. Oh yeah, well it's they had a plan, they had a whole plan, and it hinges on something that I've always been kind of curious about: planetary sensor systems. Like, how does Ventress get onto the planet? I mean, again, it's a planet of storms. So maybe sneaking on the planet isn't as hard as I think it is. But there's a blockade. Though I guess you can run the blockade, right? If you're just in like one small tiny craft. We've seen that the cloaking devices are real in Star Wars. Maybe the separatists have some kind of variation of it. Maybe she can sneak on the planet. Somehow she gets beneath the ocean surface on Kamino, and that's sort of like the underlying part of their plan. As Grievous's forces distract from the blockade, and debris, quote unquote, from the orbital attack is falling. It's actually components that the Confederacy is using to build their siege droids, basically. And again, I just sort of wonder, maybe the seas and the sort of storms that inhabit Kamino make it very difficult for that kind of sensor activity or to monitor what's going on beneath the surface of the waves. But yeah, she makes her way underwater, undetected, and again, it works for the story. I'm not too concerned about it. I do not consider it a plot hole by any means. It's just one of those elements that I'm curious of. I would have liked to have seen how she made her approach and how she got onto the surface of Kamino. Just something for me to chew on in my brain. I did want to talk about real quickly. I know I'm already into the siege, but I did want to mention when Fives and Echo encounter 99, and they have to break the news about Heavy to him, and 99 shows them that Heavy gave him his medal, and Fives and Echo were both very surprised by that gesture that Heavy had done for 99, coming out of their training. And again, there's the underscoring of the clone brotherhood is really strong in this episode. We got some good moments of that in the Clone Cadets one with Domino Squad and Heavy embracing 99 and accepting him as a brother, despite the fact that he's labeled a defect and is sort of made fun of by other clones who are less cool about that sort of thing. So bringing 99 back into the story too is another emotional element to it, and it shows the heroism of 99. Despite the fact that he's labeled this defect and not up to snuff with the rest of his brothers, he still considers himself one of them. He still considers himself. He's going to help them do everything they can to defend Kamino when he learns that that's why they've returned. That Kamino is in danger, and 99 is going to do the best he can to support his brothers in a support role. We see him later on running, reloaded rifles to the troops. He's getting supplies. He's doing all the stuff he can. He's trying to be the best brother he can to his brothers who are doing the fighting. It's just one of those moments. It's just one of those things that's so lovely just to see that, again, this theme of brotherhood that runs through a lot of these clone heavy episodes. It's one of my favorite elements, and I just find it so gosh darn charming and endearing, and I hope you do too.
I'm gonna press the attack, Master.
No, Anakin, wait. It's too easy. Not even Grievous would attack so recklessly.
Master, the battle's up here in space, not down there.
The debris from the destroyed Separatist ships is the key.
What are you thinking?
I think I'd like to go for a swim.
So Obi-Wan senses the deception in Grievous' battle plan. He believes that something's going on. The way the debris is falling, Obi-Wan's clued in. He knows what's up. So he's going to go underwater, and we get to see Aqua droids. They're assembling the assault craft, and Obi-Wan gets a little bit too close for comfort. They notice him, and they go to attack, and they're going to go crush his ship like a little peanut. And he's trying to get back to the surface. He ejects from the pod. They're in pursuit. He may not make it. And then it looks like he uses the Force. It looks like he calls out to one of the local inhabitants of the Kamino ocean life community, a local Iowa. I believe I said that correctly. And he catches a ride to the surface, much like we saw when we first got to Kamino back in Attack of the Clones. When we first got there, we saw a local Kaminoan coming out of the sea on top of the body of one of these Ewok creatures. Again, it's just sort of a fun little callback. So the the assault droids, excuse me, rise from the surface of the ocean to attack Tapaka City. And they're kind of like they kind of remind me of squids in a sense, you know, it's like 4 tentacles to climb up, and they sort of have like that arrowhead kind of shaped squid-like body, and then they plunge their mandible faces basically into the outer halls of Tapaka City, and they deploy droid armies, and that's when we get a lot of the great battle stuff. The clones holding off, fighting up against all the different aqua droids in there. We see aqua droids deployed a lot. We see the regular standard battle droids in this episode quite a bit, and it's really, really good. I can't talk to you enough about the strength of the action in the episode. It's a really action-driven episode. It's really strong, but again, the emotional current is there. The emotional undercurrent, I should say, is there, and it really does help drive the episode, because, you know, action's fun and everything like that, but without that emotional core in the story, you're not gonna relate, or you're not gonna sympathize with these characters as you're watching clone after clone get murdered by droids, and even the shot of the clone cylinders of when they're just little babies and they're in those little tiny cylinders, and you remember in the film you see the spirals of it. There's racks and racks and racks of them of these basically fetuses almost, that are being gestated in the cylinders. There's a shot in this episode of them just coming crashing down due to the attack, due to the overwhelming the onslaught being brought out by the droid army. And even that's sad, because you're like, those are just little babies. They're just little babies. What'd they ever do to you? I mean, granted, yeah, they're gonna grow up and be a clone army, but I mean, that opens a whole nother ethical can of worms that we shouldn't even get into. Like, let's keep it simple. But yeah, again, the action is so good in this one. It's top-notch stuff. I'm having a blast. You get to see, again, this is when you see 99 resupplying the clones. Grievous arrives on the scene. Ventress arrives on the scene. And everything just escalates. And Echo and Fives get called up to do some special assignments from Rex. They're going to do some sniping. They're going to go up into a vulnerable position. They're going to try and pick off as many droids as they can. Again, the action is fast and furious in this episode. I want to talk about Ventress's arrival just a little bit, because it's so good. It's really great. We're focused on an ARC trooper battling off some clones, and then it looks like he's getting ready to radio in, when all of a sudden he can't talk, he can't breathe, and he's struggling, and we know that force choke. And we pan back, we pan around, and we see Ventress arrive on the scene, and then she runs him through with her lightsaber, and with his helmet removed, she then brings him in for like this like dying man's kiss on the lips, and it's so creepy and awesome all at the same time. It says so much about the Ventress character in one, you know, frame or two of the show, that you understand that character's sort of twistedness and her darkness. And again, I don't want to go too far off base, but you know, we did the Ventress special where we talked about particularly her role in the Dark Disciple novel that was going to be based on episodes for Clone Wars from the unfinished season. So seeing how that character has changed and progressed is always so interesting. But to go back into these early episodes, and again, chronologically, this one takes place, you know, right around season 1. If you were trying to put this in a linear position, but to see the sort of twistedness, the darkness this character has, it's so surprising sometimes, because you see by the end you sort of see the light in the character, but this time around, no light at all whatsoever going on with Ventress, and I delighted with every second of it. So once again, Obi-Wan is a bit ahead of the curve, and he suspects there's more to this plan than simply destroying the city, that there actually seems to be a distraction at play. And again, you know, Obi-Wan sussed out the underwater part of the attack, but he hasn't sussed out that Ventress is there just yet. And this is when we find out that Ventress is there. She's kind of running like a covert stealth operation to liberate some clone DNA, so that they could potentially unlock the secrets of it and do some stuff. It's kind of vague what they want to do with the clone DNA, but I think we're going to get to that down the road. And so we won't talk too much about that just yet, but a lot of possibilities lie in that clone DNA, and so Ventress getting their hands on it for the droid army is bad stuff. So they got to prevent that from happening. And this is when our team squares up. Anakin comes back to Tupaka City. He's going to square off against Ventress. And we're going to get Obi-Wan versus Grievous, the classic confrontation. Grievous and Obi-Wan always engaged in the fisticuffs with one another. But these are really great lightsaber fights. They're a lot of fun. The banter with both of them is always... With Grievous is always like, you kind of know where it's going with Grievous. It's sort of one note. But James Arnold Taylor's so good at being Obi-Wan that you like his delivery of his lines more than any sort of reply that Grievous could offer up. But the back and forth between Ventress and Anakin, or when it's Obi-Wan, is always delightful too, because Ventress is just such a twisted character at this point in her time. So you really like it when they pair off. I'm going to go ahead and play a little clip from it right now.
I was beginning to think my presence went unnoticed.
You weren't planning on leaving without saying hello, were you?
All right, we're also going to go back a minute because I jumped a little bit ahead of myself. But at one point, we catch up with Fives and Echo, and they're up in their sniper position. And 99 has come through to help resupply them a little bit. But he's also come from a spot where a lot of clones have just been killed by the droid army. And he's trying to resupply them. They're trying to formulate a plan. What are they going to do next? And that's when a group of cadets comes through the smoke, and they decide they're going to get them back to the barracks. And once we're back in the barracks, we get a really interesting cross section of dialogue from the clones that I'm going to play for you right now, because they are also joined by Cody and Rex, and Cody and Rex have a lot of good things to say as well. And this is one of those kind of moments, like a galvanizing moment in a battle that is so awesome that I have to include in this episode. So check it out right now.
What are we gonna do?
We fight.
But our training's not finished.
Look around. We're one and the same. Same heart, same blood. Your training is in your blood. And my blood's boiling for a fight. This is our home. This is our war.
The scene after this is also very interesting too, because we see the attack sort of at the headquarters, the bridge area, the command deck, if you will, for where Shakti and Lama Su are holed up, trying to defend off the droid army forces too. And we get to see Shakti get into some lightsaber combat, and the very elegant way in which she uses her lightsaber to dispatch the droids. Shakti fights with a grace and a certain confidence, I think, is the other word I want to use to describe her fighting style. It's very elegant, graceful. It is much like a dancer's in a way. So there's sort of a, I don't know, it's just pretty. It's just pretty to look at. Is the best way I can describe it. She fights without emotion in a sense, because she's very finely tuned to the Force. So like, it's not like watching one of these characters who lets their emotions kind of get the better of them in a lightsaber battle. Shakti is not that, but it's a nice little moment for her in the episode, because I'd like to see more Shakti doing Shakti things in more Star Wars Clone Wars episodes. But maybe, I don't recall off the top of my head if we get too much more Shakti. But hey, we still got 5 seasons to go. What, 4, 5 seasons to go? We got a lot. We got a lot of Clone Wars to watch, so don't worry about that. We're gonna get there pretty darn quickly. But yeah, getting back into the episode, we have our lightsaber battles. Our teams are paired off against each other. We get a moment of Grievous saying, "All too easy." And, and that's when Kenobi arrives, and it's time for some good fighting. Rex and his team, they avoid droids. 99 gets more grenades. And unfortunately gets shot and killed in the effort to resupply his brothers in their assault on the droids and defending of the city. And it's sad. I don't know what else to say other than it's sad. You see the sacrifice. And this clone who has tried so very, very hard to be nothing but the best brother he can to his brothers, who are the more, not to sound insensitive, but like, we'll just say that they're the gifted and talented, and he's sort of like the runt, right? But in many ways, like we saw in the Clone Cadets episode, he's the best of them all, because he's probably the most pure of heart. And to see him shot down, and shot in the back, no less, it's sad and disheartening, and it speaks to the darkness of the war, and then the how war kills innocence and innocence and innocence at the same time. So it's maybe a little heavy-handed, but not. I don't think it's super heavy-handed. I think it's done pretty well. And it again, it underscores that theme of the brotherhood amongst the clones, because you see their emotional state watching him. And again, many of them probably look down. We saw it in the last episode. Domino Squad, like a lot of the other squads, looked down at 99 because he wasn't physically their match. He was the reject. He was the one who cleaned up after them at the battle sims. And to see how they've all changed and how they've all grown and how they have all embraced him as a brother, and then he's taken away from them because of the battle. No, it's very emotional. It's very. What are you? Are you a droid? Were you not moved? Come on, don't be like that. The rest of the episode sort of focuses more on Grievous versus Kenobi, and Asajj versus Anakin. What I wanted to say about Kenobi versus Grievous is once the battle shifts to the outside, Obi-Wan should never get into a lightsaber battle outside on Tapaka City because he loves to fall off of things in Tapaka City. He's just really, really good at this point. I mean, the guy has almost plunged to his death into that sea a couple different times. And this time, another Iwa is able to save him from certain doom. But this is how Grievous is going to be able to make his escape because he thinks he's killed Obi-Wan by knocking him off that ledge. And Obi-Wan just loves to fall off of things. It's ridiculous. Then you get Then you get Anakin versus Ventress, who is able to recover the DNA cylinder from her. There's a little hot potato action with the cylinder, and you think Ventress is going to get it back. And then a clone steps up to grab the DNA cylinder with their DNA in it. And it's this another really remarkably well done scene in the episode. These clones helmeted at all. So you can't see their faces. You can't, but you read their body language, and their sort of offense at what Ventress has tried to do by taking their DNA, by taking essentially them to use as leverage or to barter or to exploit in some way. Their body language is so powerful in the way they square off against her as they're getting ready to, what they think is going to be force her to surrender and take her into custody. Or at the very least, they're going to try and kill her right then and there if she tries anything funny. And of course, she does try something funny because she's able to use a force push and make her break for it and get picked up by General Grievous in his little floaty ball thing and his little floaty ball ship. And that's how these two get away. But it's a great moment. Like I said, the body language on the clones is so strong in this one, and it's so interesting that again, the emotional resonance on it is awesome. And we're going to play one last clip to close out the episode because this is where the title of the episode comes from. So let's check it out.
You both really stepped up in the heat of battle. We did what we had to do, sir. What any clone would have done. Both of you showed valor out there. Real courage. Remind me of me, actually. Echo, Fives, you're both officially being made ARC troopers. I don't think the Separatists will be coming back here anytime soon. But if they do, Kamino will be lucky to have clones like you defending it. Good job, men.
There you have it. Season 3, Episode 2, ARC Troopers. Ooh, it's so good. This is 9 buckets so easily. It's an easy 9 buckets. It could be a 9.5 buckets if I wanted to get crazy. I love this episode. It's got all the action you can handle, a nice emotional undercurrent. The only thing I think I would ask for more from it is I'd love to know, instead of like sort of this vague reference to like all the secrets we can unlock with this clone DNA. I'd like to know a little bit more. Like, what else do you have in mind? Like, what are you kind of thinking? Are you gonna do like some kind of genetic markers and genetic sequencing bombs and things like that to target clone DNA? Wait, I've read that in a book somewhere. That's a deep cut reference for anyone. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't. It's okay. Don't worry. Yeah, I love this episode. It's thrilling. It's exciting. It's got all the stuff you want. Again, it's light on Jedi lore and all that stuff, but season 3 of this series, we get into some deep Jedi lore down the road. So enjoy the war itself for now. Enjoy the stuff with the clones. Because we gotta. If memory serves, season 3 has an incredible back half that just like ramps up and ramps up and ramps up. That's not to say that the first half is soft. But my memory of it is there's a couple episodes here in the first dozen or so that are ups and there's highs and lows. We'll put it that way. But again, that's the point of rewatching this series. We can now contextualize these episodes a lot better than we did on our initial watch because we know the end game, we know the end point, we know where it goes, we know where these characters end up. I mean, again, Anakin and Obi-Wan, you knew, but the clones, we know more of their fates now. We know more of, we know more of Ahsoka's. Again, these things. It's easy. It's fun to look back and have more information so you can offer up a better, insightful commentary. And that's what we're doing here. And I hope you are enjoying the ride because I'm having a blast. So yeah, I'm going 9 buckets. 9 big old buckets. This one's awesome. So good. All right, time for the important notices section of the show. I don't like having to give notices because it means that something's going on and that it might interfere with our schedule and potential production delays, if you want to call them that. I don't know if we're that highfalutin of a show that we can have quote unquote production delays, but there is some real life stuff happening. As we record this, it appears imminent that the Mandovision headquarters will be relocating here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know how much I want to say about it. We will still be in San Diego. That part of life is not changing, but we are moving. We are changing locations, and you know how moving goes. It's never smooth. It's never easy. It always takes way longer than you think it will, and you end up in way more fights than you think you will. So I'm just trying to give you a warning here. And again, make sure you're following us on social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram, because I do try to post updates on Twitter as far as the show's schedule goes. Like if we're gonna miss a day or something like that, I try to post that on Twitter ahead of time so that all you wonderful people who take the time to download and listen will be able to plan accordingly, and hopefully not be too upset that we might have to miss a day or two. The plan is to keep the show on schedule. I'm going to try and work ahead and get as much stuff done as I can ahead of time before things get a little hectic with the move. But again, some of this stuff will be a little bit out of my control, so we're just going to do the best we can. But please stay tuned on social media at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. And we thank you so much for your understanding and your support. We truly, truly appreciate that. Otherwise, hey, we're going to keep rolling through with the Clone Wars. And anything else drops, we're going to be excited to talk about too. I thought about going over the Kenobi casting. They kind of officially announced the entire cast, but we all kind of knew who it was already anyways. They haven't said who's playing who, really. I mean, some we can infer because they're resuming roles. But, it just, I don't know. It's more fun to kind of see how this stuff goes when we get to again, you guys know me. I'm not a big spoiler person. I don't like to do the spoiler websites. I don't like to get too much into the rumor mill. So I kind of want to be surprised by who's who and what's what. So let's wait. Let's see what happens on the show. We know who the cast is, so we're going to be excited to see them and the roles that they take on, and that's going to be good stuff. So by all means, we will continue to get hyped for Obi-Wan, which I assume will be out sometime early next year. But fingers crossed. Fingers crossed on that. Again, another reminder, we are on social media. Please make sure you're following us. We always appreciate the likes and the follows at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Please email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, sharing, and following the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If you do those 5-star things, like on Apple Podcasts, we truly appreciate those because they are a big help for small independent shows like us. They help us stand out, not get too far down the podcasting list. I totally blanked on what word I wanted to use there. Oh well. It has lost me. The moment is gone. We must move on. We must move on. And yeah, again, my name is Tom. This is the Mandovision Podcast. I thank you all so much for being here. Old listeners, new listeners, welcome. And please stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff coming up. Obviously, the Clone Wars is our focus for right now, but the Book of Boba Fett. We got the trailer this week. I'm still reveling in the glory of that. My goodness. Give me more. But don't give me more. Like, as much as I want more, I want to wait. I want to, that's been something that you've done a really nice job with on The Mandalorian, is holding things back so that when we watch the episodes, where our jaws just fall right off of our faces onto the floor. I love that part about The Mandalorian, and I want them to continue that with Book of Boba Fett and with Obi-Wan and with Andor and all the other Disney Plus shows. Leave those surprises in there. Let's all find these things out together. Let's avoid the rumor mill, you know? How bummed would you have been if you had known that the Dark Troopers were coming in season 2 of The Mandalorian? I mean, come on. That was a great reveal. Whew. You know, I kind of wish we had been able to avoid the Ahsoka news, but again, it is what it is. You know, some stuff is just going to get out there, and I think by and large, Disney's done a good job of sort of controlling what has and hasn't made its way out into the world. So, you know, you can only do so much in that regard. It's getting harder and harder to keep secrets on sets, and you know, an NDA goes a long way, but you know, sometimes, you know, things happen. Anyways, my name is Tom. This is the Mandovision Podcast, and you are all the best. Have a great weekend. I will talk to everyone on Monday. At least that's the plan. Fingers crossed. And we'll be back soon for episode 4. No, episode 3 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. See you guys later. All have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. And remember, this podcast only ends one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I would like to see the baby.